Have you ever noticed how some people with half the resources end up creating fortunes, while others with every advantage never break free from mediocrity? I'm Edward, and today we're uncovering one of the most dangerous traps on your path to wealth, the hidden cost of thinking small. Because here's the truth. The biggest barrier to your financial future isn't the economy, luck, or even your education. It's the size of your vision. But here's the twist. Thinking small doesn't just limit what you aim for. It actively costs you opportunities, income, and wealth you don't even realize you're losing. Stay with me, because once you see how this works, you'll never look at your goals the same way again. Let's start with a simple question. Why is it that most people settle for good enough? The answer lies in a subconscious pattern psychologists call bounded aspiration. It means your brain sets limits not based on your true potential, but on the examples you see around you. If your circle of influence only earns a certain income, your mind naturally frames that as the ceiling. But wealthy individuals deliberately expand their reference points. They surround themselves with bigger thinkers, and as a result, what seems impossible to others becomes their baseline. Take Richard Branson. When asked why he kept launching new ventures after already building Virgin into a global empire, he said, "Business opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming." Notice the mindset. While most people cling to one safe path, Branson trains his brain to see unlimited opportunities. That's the cost of thinking small. You literally fail to notice the buses passing by. But here's the unexpected truth. Thinking small doesn't just block opportunities, it changes the way you make daily decisions. Imagine two entrepreneurs. One is aiming to make an extra $1,000 a month. The other is aiming to build a $1 million enterprise. The first one looks for small savings, quick gigs, and short-term wins. The second one thinks about scalable systems, partnerships, and investments. Both work the same number of hours, but the scope of their thinking creates dramatically different futures. Which one do you think ends up free from financial stress? And here's something you probably haven't heard before. Neuroscience shows that your brain's reticular activating system, the filter that decides what information to notice, activates based on your goals. If you set small goals, your brain literally edits out bigger opportunities. It's like wearing blinders to wealth. This is why high performers insist on setting targets that scare them. It forces their brain to tune into a higher level of opportunity. But how exactly do you escape the gravitational pull of small thinking? Let's look at Warren Buffett. He once said, "The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything." On the surface, that sounds like focus, but dig deeper and you'll see it's about scale. By saying no to small distractions, Buffett preserves his time and energy for billion-dollar opportunities. If he thought small, he'd spend his days chasing pennies instead of compounding billions. Here's a question for you. What's the invisible cost of your current level of thinking? Every time you choose a safe, small target, you might be trading away the network you could have built, the skills you could have developed, or the wealth you could have created. That cost isn't obvious in the moment, but years later it shows up as regret. Now, let's ground this in a practical example. A study from Harvard Business Review found that companies pursuing 10x growth plans outperformed those chasing incremental gains, not because their leaders were smarter, but because bigger goals demanded different strategies. In other words, your target shapes your tactics. If you aim small, you solve problems with small solutions. Aim bigger, and you're forced to innovate. But here's the real kicker. Thinking big doesn't mean reckless risk-taking. It means consciously expanding the horizon of what's possible. Elon Musk didn't start SpaceX because it was safe. He started because he asked a bigger question. Why can't humanity be multiplanetary? Whether you agree with his vision or not, notice how the size of his thinking reshaped entire industries. So, how do you apply this to your life? The key is to deliberately raise your mental thermostat. Start by asking yourself, if my goal was 10 times bigger, what would I do differently? This one question forces your brain into new territory. Suddenly, you're not asking how to save £50. you're asking how to earn 5,000 more. That single shift unlocks ideas and actions you'd never see otherwise. And here's the part most people miss. Small thinking feels safe because it reduces the chance of failure, but in reality, it increases the certainty of mediocrity. By playing small, you guarantee average results. By thinking big, you risk discomfort, but you also create the possibility of extraordinary success. Now stay with me because in the next part, I'll reveal the 3 hidden psychological traps that keep most people stuck in small thinking, even when they consciously try to aim higher. Once you see them, you'll understand why breaking free is harder than it looks, but also exactly how to overcome them. Earlier I told you that small thinking carries a hidden cost. Now let's pull back the curtain and expose the 3 psychological traps that keep people stuck in this cycle. Traps you must recognize if you want to break free and think like the wealthy. The first trap is what psychologists call loss aversion. Humans are wired to fear losing something more than they value gaining it. This bias keeps people focused on protecting the little they have, instead of reaching for something larger. For example, many employees cling to jobs they dislike because they fear losing stability, even though building a side business could multiply their income long term. Wealthy thinkers flip this script. Instead of asking, "What if I lose?" they ask, "What's the bigger loss if I never try?" That subtle shift reframes risk as opportunity. The second trap is the identity ceiling. Your subconscious holds a self-image of who you are and what you're allowed to achieve. If your internal identity is capped at middle-class security, your brain will sabotage efforts that conflict with that image. This is why lottery winners often go broke. They lack the identity of a wealthy person. Jim Rohn famously said, "You must learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job." That's identity work. Until you see yourself as someone capable of wealth, you'll unconsciously shrink opportunities back to your comfort zone. The third trap is what I call the illusion of incrementalism. Society teaches us to think progress must be linear, small, steady steps forward. But wealthy individuals don't just climb stairs, they build elevators. They search for leverage points that create exponential growth, investments, partnerships, or technologies that accelerate results. If you believe progress must be slow, you'll never take the actions that create sudden breakthroughs. So, how do you escape these traps and expand your thinking? Here are 3 practical strategies you can start using today. First, deliberately reframe risks. Whenever you hesitate to pursue an opportunity, write down the potential loss if you fail, and then compare it to the guaranteed cost of inaction. 9 times out of 10, you'll realize not acting is the greater risk. This exercise rewires your brain to embrace bigger moves. Second, upgrade your environment. Remember, your identity ceiling is shaped by who you spend time with. If you're always surrounded by small thinkers, your vision will shrink to match theirs. Seek rooms where you feel slightly out of your depth. That discomfort is your mind stretching into a larger identity. Oprah Winfrey once said, "Surround yourself only with people who are going to lift you higher." It's not just advice, it's a strategy for expanding your wealth potential. Third, practice 10x problem solving. Take one of your current goals and multiply it by 10. Ask yourself, if I had to achieve this 10 times bigger, what approach would I use? Suddenly, you're forced to think beyond incremental steps and consider leverage, systems, or partnerships. This simple mental exercise pulls you out of the illusion of incrementalism and into exponential opportunity. Now, here's the unexpected truth. Thinking big doesn't always mean you'll achieve the exact goal you set. But by aiming higher, you unlock a trajectory that's exponentially more rewarding. Even if you fall short of a 10 million goal, you might still land at 1 million, which is far beyond the ceiling small thinking would have allowed. Let me leave you with this final thought. Thinking small feels safe, but it's the most expensive decision you can make. You pay with missed opportunities, untapped potential, and years of your life that could have been lived differently. Thinking big, on the other hand, challenges you, stretches you, and sometimes scares you. But it also transforms you into the kind of person who notices opportunities others never see. So ask yourself right now, where in your life are you thinking too small? Is it your income goal, your career vision, or your investments? And more importantly, What could open up if you allowed yourself to think 10 times bigger? Because the truth is, the cost of small thinking is invisible until it's too late. But the rewards of thinking big are visible for generations. The choice is in your hands. Stay limited, or step into the expansive mindset that builds true wealth.